PvP and just want to beat the crap out of each other online. They don't have to make all the massive investments. I mean, it's still a huge investment, don't get me wrong, but they keep a certain amount of infrastructure, and they gain an additional revenue source from Elder Scrolls that they aren't getting right now. That, to me, makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. But if you turn something like Mass Effect into an MMORPG, I think it will be very popular. I don't think it will be nearly as popular as Mass Effect is as a single-player experience. It's just too damn good as a single-player experience. I'm challenging folks out there to make that happen. I hope they do make it happen. It would be awesome to see an Elder Scrolls MMO that was really as engaging as something like Skyrim. But part of the reason I love this game is because I can jump in and out. I don't have to sit there and play for 3 hours with all my friends and make sure I make the raid at 8 o'clock and whatever have you. It just breaks your back. So I think it's an important point to be looking into. I think Vulcan Assassin is very much onto a good point here, which is, if it's not part of the future of gaming, then why are so many people trying to invest in it? Can't argue with that logic. I think it's very, very sound. On the other hand, I'll try to play devil's advocate for it. You know, someone like Elder Scrolls is not basing their future on an MMO. They're facing incremental revenue on an MMO. Someone like Mass Effect is not basing their future on it. Another Mass Effect is going to come out, but an MMO would help them find that incremental revenue and not something that defines the franchise moving forward in the future. So in other words, it's kind of an ancillary thing. Versus something like, you know, I'm trying to think here for specific examples, but something like, for example, 38 Years, Kingdoms of Amalur, right? If you look at them turning that into an MMO, it's a completely brand new property. I'll say like Tabula Rasa from ArenaNet. Any of these smaller RPGs, like actually one of the shirts I got at PAX right here, Dragon Nest. You know, these smaller kind of RPG experience, MMORPG experiences where you can bring people in, be cooperative, have fun. Interesting thought. Not sure it really goes anywhere. And at the end of the day, who knows where we'll land. Anyway, that's what I'm going to focus on from you guys. Here's what I think. I'm going to sound a little heretical here. And I'm going to say that the future of MMOs, okay, let me reiterate. MMORPGs, I think, are part of the history of video gaming. I think that moment is kind of drawing to a close. World of Warcraft is immensely popular, will remain immensely popular. But I'm not sure that you'll ever have as many of those games stacked up as you had at that particular point in time, because the market is definitely shrinking. The number of MMORPG games that were in development 5 years ago has dwindled significantly. There's still a ton of MMORPGs and not a whole lot of players to inhabit those worlds, and people will continue to develop them. My point is, it's dwindled a little bit. I think that will continue. But the idea of MMO in other genres is what really gets me going. Because the idea of taking an RTS, for example, I love single-player RTS, but I love the idea of MMORTS. If you could imagine if you could play Command & Conquer Red Alert, and you were in a cooperative game with a ton of people, right? Building that base and continuing that base into the future, and moving into taking over other people's camps and destroying everything in sight. I just think that would be awesome. And I'm not sure how that mechanic might work. I'm not sure how you really pass control of certain things. Maybe you have someone that works on specifically building armored vehicles, and someone that commands naval units, and all those kinds of things that come together. I'm not sure how it works, guys. I'm not an expert. I don't make video games. But my point is, if you could find an MMORTS that I think really worked, I think that would be awesome. They talked about this at the online gaming PAX panel. The idea of an online FPS. Now I know that something like Tribes is not an MMO FPS, but it has the potential to be because of the expansive worlds, right? I think one of the reasons Tribes is so awesome is because the worlds are so freaking big. The maps are huge. Well, what if you could actually wage war in this place as if it were, where you have thousands of people and you're trying to take that hill, right? Where you actually have a real battle as if it were playing out in the real world. And I just think that would be awesome. I think people would really take to that, and I think there would be a lot of strategic, initiative in that. I think a lot of people that do things like LARPing and things like that, which I don't understand at all, would really gravitate to those kinds of experiences. So I think MMOs, as they are defined as massively multiplayer online games in general, I think they're going to be a big part of the future. But I don't know that we haven't seen the best days of the MMORPG. I could be completely wrong. Maybe there will be something that, maybe Guild Wars 2 will kill WoW and everyone will just think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not even saying I think it's going to happen. I'm just saying something like that could easily come along and change my mind. But right now, I'm just starting to think that the best days of the MMORPG are behind us and not forward. When you have someone like BioWare that invests massive amounts of money, takes one of the most popular licenses of all time, and puts it online and only gets a couple of months of traction with it, I'm starting to think that not a lot of people are going to spend money in this vein anymore. It just doesn't look like a great money-making venture. And I think that's why 38 Studios is having a hard time finding public capital, or I'm sorry, private capital. I said exactly the opposite of what I was thinking. Private capital, and why I think a lot of companies are going to have a hard time outside of China and Japan finding private capital because people don't believe in these concepts anymore. And I think it is going to be a part of the past. Sorry if that shocked some of you. Anyway, those are my thoughts. So, great conversation, guys. We could continue on with this for a long, long time. Trust me. I have so much more to say about this. It's unreal. And someday, whether it's on the Echo screen or whether we start doing some live weekly ringers where we do something like a FaceTime where I can talk to you guys, or a one-to-many broadcast where you guys can talk to me, we could talk about this kind of stuff ad nauseum, and I'd love to talk with you guys about it into the future. But alas, we must continue with the weekly ringer, and we must ask a question for next week so that you guys have something else to pique your interest and something else to talk about. Here's what I want to talk about for next week. I saw some statistics recently, and they kind of blew my mind. The Xbox 360 is defying logic right now. How do I mean that? If you look at even something as immensely popular as the PlayStation 2, the arc of popularity and the amount of money that it generates follows a very, very easy to follow curve, right? Now you're hoping you don't get this kind of hockey stick and then a plummet, right? You're hoping you draw it out for a long, long time over many, many years, and it kind of continues along, which is exactly what the PS2 did, and it's got the best arc, not the highest arc, but the arc that stayed the highest for the longest, because the PS2 is unbelievable, right? And you see something of a hockey stick with the Wii where it really becomes immensely popular, and then all of a sudden it just kind of falls off a cliff in terms of the amount of money that it's generating. The Wii is not generating a ton of revenue right now, which is indicative of why Nintendo is suffering so badly right now. They're hoping the Wii U can really turn that around, and I think it just might. We'll find out a lot more at E3. The 360 is defying that standard right now. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I think it's a great thing to look at. If you look at the revenue of the 360, it does this. And takes off. This 2012 looks to be the best year in the history of the 360. They're going to generate the most revenue, they're going to have the most subscribers, and they're going to take on a completely new set of people that are watching different kinds of video than they've ever seen before. The PlayStation, PS3, and those of you that know, I'm not trying to be biased here. I don't own a PlayStation 3. I have no stock in it. I used to be a PlayStation fanboy to the max. Is looking like this. They had that stable curve right around the same time where Xbox had kind of leveled out, and we thought, okay, that was it. But instead of going up, it's going back down again. The 360 is defying that curve. And what I want to talk to you about, what I want to ask you about, is along those lines. Because we got to start thinking about what that means. That means the 360, basically 6 years after it debuted, has now completely reinvented itself and become so much more popular than it ever has in the future. With, by the way, looking to be countless years of popularity in the future. Although I played The Witcher 2, which was designed for PC and has been ported to the 360, and it's ugly and it's awful because they just couldn't work within the constraints of the 360 anymore. Anyway, different story. The point is, though, here's the question. It led me to think about life cycles of consoles. And I wanted to ask you guys this question. You can answer it any way you want to, as is the case with the Weekly Ringer. I just want to get your thoughts on this. So the question for next week is as follows. What are your thoughts about a 10-year life cycle for a console? More specifically, what are your thoughts about a 10-year life cycle for consoles? As in, if all consoles lasted 10 years or had a life cycle of 10 years. I remember, and I won't say anything about my answer in this, but I remember when Sony came out and said the PS3, we imagine it to have a life cycle of 10 years. Everyone laughed. Everyone thought they were out of their freaking minds. Now it looks like that might be how they need to market this sucker, because if they don't get 10 years out of it, it might be a huge loss for them, right? 360 is the same way. It's a little bit different because they've been generating revenue with the 360 for a long time now, and the 360 is a little bit older, but it's starting to look like the 360 could last well beyond a 10-year life cycle to being something that even after a successor comes out, it could be extremely popular into the future. So, neither here nor there. You guys tell me what you think about a 10-year life cycle for consoles. Let me know what you think that looks like. And, give me your general thoughts about it. Positive, negative, indifferent, whatever. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with, as always. Thank you so much for commenting. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you for being a part of the community here on the Weekly Ringer as a part of Clan of the Grey Wolf. I am the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and there is no reset button.